Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Now that it's been, about 2 days since we heard the news of the passing of Rush drum legend Neil Peart, figured we'd do kind of like a nice little kind of in memory of show. The show we posted the other day was done as we heard it. Myself and most of our viewers were pretty emotional, and it was just kind of a dark, late afternoon announcement. That I'm still getting over the whole thing, but I think you've had a couple days to kind of reflect and think about it, and I think the days of the tears are gone. Okay, but now it's time to really reflect on the man, the drummer, the writer, the musician that was Neil Peart, one of the most beloved drummers of all time, and I just kind of wanted to kind of reflect back on my life with Rush and with Neil, not knowing him personally, obviously, but the music of Neil. And I can remember, we're talking like late 70s here, so I think it was right about, it was definitely before Moving Pictures, maybe around Farewell to Kings, when that album first came out, is when I first started to really notice Rush. I had a good friend of ours, of my brother and mine, who lived down the road from us, who actually got into Rush before we did, and I remember going over to his house one day, and him playing like Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres, and specifically All the World Stage. And I remember really, really digging on that. And this was probably around right before Permanent Waves. And I remember just thinking, wow, this is good. This is heavy, but this is like, when we would read the lyrics. I mean, that was back in the day. I don't necessarily do that too much anymore, but reading these kind of really cool sci-fi lyrics and seeing the double neck guitars and thinking, God, all this wall of sound is being created by just three guys. And the singer sounds so different, right? That high-pitched voice. And man, that drummer, it's like he's doing all these crazy fills and lead drumming stuff. But I think what more, also just as important, which I think a lot of people don't talk about when you talk about the drumming of Neil Peart, is all the little kind of like chimes and cymbals and all these little percussive bits that he threw in a lot of those albums right around that time period. When the music kind of like started to die down a little bit, the bombast kind of settles in, you got all these little deft touches that Neil would always do. Added so much to their music, right? And then, once you start to follow the band a little bit more, you realize just how much of their music, and especially their lyrics, all created by this guy sitting behind the drum kit. This big, tall dude with the mustache and the long hair back in the day. And I remember going to see them for the very, very first time on the Moving Pictures tour, and I believe that was at Madison Square Garden, New York City, and just being totally into it. I mean, I liked them before Moving Pictures, but it was the Moving Pictures album that really kind of blew it up for me, that made me like a Rush fanatic. And, I saw them on the Moving Pictures tour, I saw them on the Signals tour, saw them on the Grace Under Pressure tour, and then didn't see them for a long time. Had tickets to go see them at a show up in Albany, New York, in the early 90s. But there was a big snowstorm, and we wound up not going to the show, obviously. And I did not get to see them live again until their last tour. It was at 2015, also at Madison Square Garden. Okay, and that was great because so many years had passed since I had seen them last. They were obviously much, much younger. The last time I had seen them, their style was evolving quite a bit because it was the early mid '80s, right? Because Signals and Grace Under Pressure, vastly different albums than the ones that came before it. But here I got to see them, their final tour, playing stuff from all their eras. And it was great how they did it. They started from the more recent material and worked their way back. Okay. It was a lot of fun for a lifetime fan to see a show like that, where they just kind of played it by era, all right, all the way through the concert. A lot of fun. And I think that it's great to have those kind of final memories of the band, right? And again, Neil looking so different, obviously, a little bit heavier, all right, wearing the little cap, the long hair gone, the mustache gone, but still, and a million drums. His drum kit was ridiculous last time I saw him, but just as amazing, doing the things the Professor does so well, or did so well, as we now have to say, unfortunately. So, and I look back on some of my favorite kind of musical memories of the music of Rush. And it's not too hard to, when you're talking about Neil Peart and his drumming and what are some of your favorite songs featuring him, you know, La Villa Strangiato, of course, YYZ, of course, you know, you tend to kind of like hone in on some of those instrumental pieces. But man, you know, Limelight, Witch Hunt, Cygnus, I was listening to By Torn the Snow Dog yesterday. Jesus. And again, that goes back to what I was talking about, you know, especially like on All the World's a Stage. You know, you have that middle section of By-Tor where Alex is doing all these kind of weird guitar effects, echo effects and things like that. And all in the background, all you're hearing is Neil with all these little kind of these chimes and cymbals and things, creating this like atmosphere in the background. Very unique, right? Very unique, very Neil Peart. And I like, you know, it's Caress of Steel. What a great album. You know, listen to 2112 yesterday too. You know, the first album that I listened to after I heard that he passed and did the show here is I put on Permanent Waves. All right. And again, great album, right? Moving Pictures I played. You know, we went out Friday night, my wife and I and a couple friends, and just drove around, went to a couple places, went out to eat, have a beer, this, that, and the other thing, and just played like three, you know, and I was like, and I felt bad because it's like, I know my wife and my friends probably not Rush fans, but I was like, you know what, I'm driving, we're listening to Rush tonight. So I just kept popping the tunes in, popping those CDs in, and that's kind of how I spent the evening. And you know, yesterday was kind of like recovering and, you know, reading some comments and things like that. And, you know, all over the internet, you know, Mike Portnoy and the statement from the band and, you know, all this outpouring of love. Unbelievable. I mean, that's what, you know, what really makes you treasure music and some of these musicians. You know which are the ones that really have touched us deeply when they pass and you see the outpouring of love. All right? Because that's what it's all about. That really shows you which of our friends and neighbors in our society that music means a lot to them. Because to the people who don't really care about music, you know, someone passes from a band, artist that they may listen to, like, you know, another death, everybody has to die, right? No big deal. But to those of us that music really touches us and is so much a part of our lives, when one of our heroes dies, it touches it. It's like losing a family member. Right? And that's how, you know, Rush to me, and I said this to a couple people online, you know, Rush, we had three guys, all right, who were never all about the sex, drugs, and rock and roll and all that kind of stuff. Never about that, right? They're all about the music. So, like, you know, you don't have the stories with Rush, you know, that the crazy Motley Crue stories and all these other bands, you know, Zeppelin, all this debauchery. That was not Rush, right? That was not Rush at all. They were all about the music. And I think because of that, we all tended to think that those three guys from Rush, even though they're not really doing anything anymore and they've retired, that they're going to be with us forever. But there is no forever, unfortunately. And I don't think, and one of the things I kept saying on my show the other night, through many tears, was that I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't ready for this because sometimes, you know, again, he didn't release to the public that he had brain cancer. He's had it for 3 years, right? So we didn't know. So to all of us, this was so sudden. There's no way to prepare for it. And then when it hits, you're devastated, right? So my first thought process is like, I couldn't prepare for this, right? But there really is no, you know, death is inevitable to all of us. But I think we were all still holding out hope that maybe somewhere down the road we'd hear a little bit more from Neil, get a little bit more. But now, as we know it, that is not going to be the case. However, he's left such a rich discography behind, along with his two bandmates, the music of Rush. And I think what we can do now, you know, and there's a lot of albums, and I think, you know, now's a good time to go and maybe rediscover some of those albums that maybe you haven't listened to too much. Because I know a lot of people who are Rush fans, but they don't listen to like the more recent stuff. Or they haven't. They never bothered, or they gave it a listen to it like, it's not quite as good as Hemispheres and Moving Pictures. It's like, well, now's the time to go and discover all that great drumming, the great songwriting, the great playing throughout all those albums. You know, Roll the Bones and Test for Echo and, you know, Snakes and Arrows and, you know, all of them. Power Windows, Grace Under Pressure, Signals, all those albums that maybe, you know, presto, maybe that you weren't crazy about back in the day. And maybe you'll discover some great new stuff on those, right? And maybe you'll say, you know what, maybe these albums aren't as bad as I originally thought. Or, you know what, maybe I shouldn't have ignored these albums all these years, because there's some really good stuff on there. As a tribute to Neil, to go and discover more of his craft, right? We all know we love 2112 and Moving Pictures and Hemispheres and Fly By Night. We know that, okay? Let's go and dive in deeper into the catalog as a way to celebrate the life of Neil Peart. That's kind of what it's all about now, going forward, right? And will Alex and Geddy make new music together, maybe with someone else? I don't know. I think we can all agree that there's never going to be a Rush again. Excuse me. But it would be nice to hear those guys do something, maybe as a quick tribute to their fallen bandmate. We'll see. We'll see. But I want to thank all of you, or I should say most of you, who really understood where I was coming from Friday on my quick little video. I think that was just, as soon as I heard about it, the first thing I wanted to do was talk to you guys, because I think you guys and myself all knew how we were feeling, and I think it was great for us to kind of share in our grief together at the moment that we heard that we heard of his passing. Okay, regardless of the fact of whether he died a couple days before, but as soon as it was announced, I was on here wanting to talk to you guys, because I knew you would understand how I was feeling, okay, and would want to just kind of talk about all that is Neil Peart, right? You know, we had a couple of guys who shall remain nameless, because there's no reason to give them any kind of credit here, who decided to use this comments forum as a way to make fun of me because I got emotional, all right? This one guy called me pathetic. He called me a pussy. He said I needed to get some balls, and then he made a comment that, oh, you know, just 2 days ago you did your top drummers video, and Neil came in number 3 behind Cozy Powell and John Bonham, and now you're here crying about him like he's the greatest thing ever. And I'm like, seriously? That's your intelligent comment? Okay, because let me tell you something. The day we stop crying and feeling emotional about our heroes who mean a lot to us, or crying about a relative who's passed, a loved one, a friend, a teacher, a coworker, the day we stop getting emotional and crying and showing our humanity is the day we stop being humans. So how dare you tell me not to show my emotions over a musician that has meant a lot to me? It doesn't matter where he comes up, what number he comes up on a drummer's list. That doesn't matter at all, you child. So, you know, have some decency. I mean, there were a handful of comments like that. It's like, you know, if you can't show some emotion with friends, then what's this world come to? All right? You don't want to see me or anybody else say, type, or show emotion, go somewhere else. All right? That's all I got to say about that. This is all about Neil. All right? This is all about Neil, showing the love for Neil, expressing our gratitude for all the music he's given us and the great life and the great man, okay? And now we can only wish, you know, Godspeed to his, and you know, all the love to his family to get through this ordeal, and his bandmates and friends and family and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be tough without him, because he, you know, great human being. I never met him, but that's what everybody says. And he gave so much thought to, you know, his books, his lyrics, his drumming, his, you know, his relationships. Everybody you read about who knew him has nothing but great things to say about him. So it's a great loss for, you know, not only us the fans, but everybody who knew him privately and personally. So all we can do now is let's celebrate the life of Neil Peart and the music of Neil Peart. Go out and read his books. Grab his books. Go out and listen to all those albums. I'm telling you, dig into those albums that you may have kind of forgotten about or ignored. There's a lot of them. A lot of albums. All right? A lot of great music. You know? We know those classics, right? But there's a lot of really solid other material where you can hear his great skills. So that's kind of what I'm going to be doing. So thanks for tuning in to our little remembrance of the great Neil Peart, okay, who passed away at the age of 67 this week from brain cancer. We're going to miss you, Neil, but your music will live on forever. This is on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. We'll see you guys this week with more stuff Take care. Bye bye.